Are you a teen mom feeling alone and in need of support and encouragement? My name is Kelsie. I was placed in foster care at 16, just as I became a mother. Let me tell you my story and what I learned about myself and what I want other teen moms to know about who they are and what they are capable of. But first, let's go back a bit. My grandmother used to bring me to Skate World when I was just 6 years old. I immediately fell in love with skating. Skating became a safe space for me. Every Friday and Saturday night, just for a few hours, I could feel safe. Safe from a home where I felt neglected and mentally abused. But when I was 16, my life took a turn. Imagine getting in a caseworker's car with no idea of the destination and traveling a foster home that was 2.5 hours away, showing up at a foster home at 1:30 in the morning, half asleep, walking into this unfamiliar place, the way it looked, the way it sounded, the way it smelled, so dark outside, arriving at this strange, ominous destination. Imagine having just given birth and being 3 days postpartum, with all the hormones and after effects of giving birth, feeling sore, raw, vulnerable, unsure who to talk to about what is going on, only having the hospital clothes and wearing them for 3 days in a row, only one bag, all alone, thinking, is it ever going to get better? Imagine if all you had to wear was this. It was the last day of my discharge date that I got a knock on the hospital door. It was a caseworker telling me that I would be leaving the hospital and entering foster care and not going back home. For a minute, I was nervous and scared, just wondering okay, will I ever get my belongings from my house? Would I be able to go home and get my son's clothes, his bottles and blankets I just bought? What would I have when I get there? And also, where was I going? Because my son is still in the hospital for 5 more days. So I was just really worried that if I was leaving the hospital, who would be there to watch my kid for me at the hospital? So that night around 8 p.m., they entered my room. I was packing my bags and I was getting ready to walk over to the NICU to see my son before I left. And I went in to see my baby and he was just laying in the crib and he had a bunch of wires and different machines hooked up to him, and my body just couldn't leave that room. My heart couldn't leave that room. I felt like I was leaving him there at the hospital and walking away from him. And I couldn't walk away from him. I needed to stay there to take care of my baby. And the caseworker came in and she said, "Okay, Kelsie, it's time to go." And I vividly remember her grabbing for my hand and saying, "Let's go." And I couldn't walk away. After about 20 more minutes passed by, I finally was able to leave the hospital and I got into her vehicle. And she put the GPS in and it said 2 hours and 30 minutes. And I lost it. I just felt like I'm leaving, not only am I leaving my baby, I'm going 2 hours away. How am I going to be here in the morning for him? How am I going to give him his breast milk? He's breastfed and I strictly told the hospital no formula. So I had to get there early in the morning to feed him again. There wasn't enough milk to barely last him overnight. So on the journey there, it was dark. It was about 9:30 by the time we actually got onto the highway. And I just remember the car ride was so quiet. I knew my caseworker. I loved her. She was family. And even though she was in the car with me, I still felt so alone. I felt like that drive took a day compared to 2 hours. And then I remember walking into the kitchen and we sat around the kitchen table and we all talked about, the house rules. And I just remember the caseworker and my foster mom were just talking and I was just sitting there staring at them and I was lost. I felt empty. I felt alone. I wanted my son. I could only think about, what is he doing right now? Is he okay? I didn't go to bed that night until about 7 in the morning. I finally dozed off and she woke me up around 7:30 and she said it's time to go to the hospital. And so I remember getting in her van, driving 2.5 hours to the hospital, finally getting to the hospital, and the only thing I wanted was to hold my baby. And I still wasn't able to hold my baby. He was hooked up to so many machines and wires that I could only touch him through incubator. So I pumped and I got the milk ready and I fed him, and she came in around 6 p.m. that night and said, "Okay, it's time to head back." And I remember making sure I pumped again before I left so that he would have milk. And we did that for 5 days. Every morning, I could barely get any sleep. I was pumping milk for him, saving it. I used to have an ice bag that I would put the milk in to carry to the hospital for him. And then once he did come home, it wasn't like bringing your newborn baby home and you get to, adjust to the home life. You were also adjusting, not just to having a baby, but you're adjusting to the new surroundings that you're bringing your baby to. And I just remember I had a different version or vision of how this would go. I remember him coming home and having his own nursery and him being able to sleep in his crib, and instead we were in one bedroom, packed tight, with a pack and play, a crib, a changing table, and a little twin bed. And that's where I brought him home to. And I just remember feeling like nobody understood what I was going through. Nobody could even grasp the idea of bringing a child into a stranger's home and trying to raise a child in a stranger's home. It's not your comfort zone. It's not what you're used to. And it sure isn't what this baby's used to. He just got brought into the world. So I just remember trying to adapt, trying to adjust and make it the best that I could. Imagine if foster parents and county child welfare agencies throughout the state and throughout the nation were better prepared for teen moms in care, especially given the prevalence today. Imagine if I hadn't been sent away, far away, with a child in the NICU for a week and separated from him, waking up early and driving there and back for a week until he came out of the hospital. Not only far away from my family, but also far away from my newborn child. My body felt like I just had a baby, but there is no baby. Imagine if foster parents and county child welfare agencies throughout the state and throughout the nation were better prepared for teen moms in foster care, especially given the prevalence today. Being a youth in foster care is precarious, unfamiliar, and things are out of our control. All of our senses are in unfamiliar territory. Many of us remember the first smell of our first foster home and how everything felt unfamiliar. Parents' lives don't drastically change when youth enter foster care, youth lives do. Imagine if I had been provided with a starter kit. Pericare spray bottle, soap, toothbrush, toothpaste, clean clothes, especially personal items, and a safe item like a blanket or a pillow, or something familiar and comforting like a fan by my bed. I would have slept so much better that night. As a youth in foster care in Ohio, you have legal rights. You have resources that you can access. We will get into the details just how to access those resources in the third video in this series. Most importantly, you need to understand that you are not alone. You are not just a statistic. There are people ready and willing to help.